the show.
For Thursday, March 16th, 2017. Welcome to This Is Only a Test, the official podcast of Tested.com. Hello, everyone, and welcome to a very special travel edition of This Is Only a Test.
Travel edition? I thought this was the new set.
Yeah, we've opened up the backyard. If you are watching the video right now, you may notice that we are not indoors. We're very cold, and we are in another country. I'm Norm. I'm joined by our co-host, Kishore. How are you doing, Kishore?
I'm doing great. Jeremy, you look great today.
Jeremy is like 10 years younger. All the white hair is gone. And we don't have Jeremy this week. Jeremy didn't come with us. We have Joey Fameli.
Hello.
Hey, Joey is up traveling with us from LA. We are all actually in Switzerland?
No, we're in France.
We're in the border of Switzerland, France right now, on the France side in a small town named Ferney-Voltaire.
We'll get to our review of Ferney-Voltaire soon, but look, we got snow-capped mountains behind us.
Well, not only behind us, but also in front of us, on the other end too.
Yeah, mountains all around us, surrounded. Actually, in the far distance, how far away do you think those mountains are? Like 100 miles?
Miles? It's metric,
It's
son.
100 kilometers, 60
yeah.
miles, an hour's drive away. People tell us that around here you can go skiing, which is a 45-minute drive, and in the wintertime you'll find ski routes in the ski resort. So we are here in Ferney-Voltaire, right outside of Geneva, Switzerland, because for the past 2 days we have been here at CERN, visiting CERN. And for Joey and I, it's a return trip to CERN because we were here in 2013.
Yeah, this is my virginal trip to CERN, though. How does it feel to be back?
It's familiar. There are some parts that are very familiar. Oftentimes at the end of these really long, ambitious trips with a ton of things going on or areas that we've not really been exposed to, at the end of the trip I always feel like I could really wish I could do that trip again today, knowing all the things we've learned in the past couple days, and we got to do it.
So you got your PhD in particle physics and then came back.
No, didn't need the PhD in particle physics. Didn't need to be respected here. But it was back. Our friend Stephen Goldfarb, who works at the Atlas experiment in their outreach department, we've been in touch with him, and we came actually with Simone Yetch. Mm-hmm. Simone, Kishore, Joey, and I, we traveled. We've been here for 2 days shooting video, meeting some physicists.
Meeting a lot of physicists.
A lot of physicists. It's like, you know, when we're having lunch, it's number of physicists outnumber number of non-physicists.
By a significant degree.
True.
Yeah.
What did you think about coming back? It's been how long?
It's 3-4 years.
4 years now, 2013.
So keep in mind, we came here and we did 1 day at CERN.
Yeah.
And then left. And like it was, you know, when you do 1 day trips like that in such a kind of complex place in a environment like CERN, it's you know, you kind of hit the ground running, working, and then leave, and kind of it feels like a dream. This felt like hanging out a little longer, getting a little more intimate, and kind of getting to know everyone and everything.
It's almost like a 4 year ago scouting trip. 4 years ago, we were here because we visited with Logitech. They were based out of Lausanne, France, close to the EPFL. And
Lausanne, Switzerland.
Oh, sorry, Lausanne, Switzerland. And only about an hour or so, hour and a half or so away. And they are the ones who flew us out here to check out their testing labs. And then we just kind of dovetailed the CERN trip in there. But the purpose of this trip was to visit CERN. And do you guys want to jump right into CERN, or do you guys want to?
Well, wait. I think this is Joey's first time on the podcast. Is that true? Is this your first time on the podcast?
No, he's been on the podcast a couple of times.
How long has it been? Like, you've been with Tested forever, so how long has it been since you've been on This Only
This Only Test?
Yeah.
Probably the old office with Will. I don't know.
Well, have you done one in the new? You haven't done one in the new office.
I've not done one in the new office.
You've
no.
done a still entitled in the new
I've
office.
not done one in France.
So why don't we do a little get to know Joey then?
All right.
Right? 5 questions for Joey.
Oh boy.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. How do you take your coffee?
Black.
Favorite pasta?
All of it?
Joey makes pasta at home.
Are we talking like noodle, or are we talking pasta sauce?
Let's go with noodle.
Okay, noodle. I like linguine,
Okay.
Dish.
What?
Favorite pasta dish.
bolognese.
Linguine with bolognese?
No. Well, sometimes, but no. Bolognese sauce, linguine pasta in different preparations.
What's your everyday carry? What's in your pockets?
As little as possible. Wallet and a phone and sometimes keys.
Okay. Best pizza you've ever had.
Wow.
Oh, come on.
On the spot.
Let's do it. If he's gonna be part of this podcast, let's get to the important questions.
I did school I did some early college in Florence, Italy. And I did, as a side stuff, I did a lot of cooking classes. The pizza I had there is what I've been trying to replicate in making pizza since then.
A Neapolitan style pizza?
Very Neapolitan style, yeah.
Okay. And what do you think of the pizza ATM?
Yeah. I like the concept.
That's all you can say. We haven't had it.
Yeah.
Pizza ATM is what we should dive into as the most important thing that we've seen at our trip at CERN.
Wow. Yeah. So this small town of Ferny Voltaire, which is named after the writer Voltaire, it's a very sleepy town. Has one main street, has maybe a dozen restaurants, and most of which were closed when we were here for the past 3 nights.
The town seems to shut down at 7 p.m. It doesn't open up until about 8 a.m.
Yeah.
Which is saying something.
And then we did find a decent pizzeria.
Oh, yeah, that was great.
Yeah.
It was good.
Yeah.
But out downstairs, around the corner from the pizzeria, it looks like an ATM machine. It makes and serves a box of pizza.
It's
Like
just downstairs. It looks like they could theoretically just put pizzas into a garbage chute and it would go
Right.
straight to the ATM.
Yeah. So, but this is a 24-hour ATM, as I understand it.
There was a slot for a card. There was a punch pad for like putting in your pin,
For personal pizza.
and then slots for 4 different kinds
Well,
of
so
pizza.
yeah, they had 4 slots, 4 different kinds of pizzas. That's all you
Wait.
can get. You can't mix and match.
They had a different slot for each pizza, as
Type.
opposed to one slot like the box would come out.
Yeah,
of.
it didn't make much sense to me either. But there's 4 types of pizzas. There's a margarita pizza,
Okay.
There's a calabrese.
which seemed pretty fancy for a pizza ATM
Yeah,
to have a
yeah.
calabrese.
I wouldn't trust a meat pizza from a pizza ATM.
Imagine
I
it's
don't know about you
frozen,
guys.
right? You think it's frozen, then the
You hope it's
microwave,
frozen, yeah.
heat it up, and then it's not fresh.
Well, 4 minutes. So they cook it in 4 minutes. You think you
4-minute
could do a frozen
microwave.
pizza in?
If
Yeah.
you had
Can't be
if you had to cook a pizza in 4 minutes, whether it was frozen, what would be the best optimal way to cook a pizza in 4 minutes? Like,
I'm proud to say I've never cooked a frozen pizza.
okay,
How can that be true? You're an adult male from the United States. That's not possible.
maybe there are things that Joey doesn't consider pizza that he's cooked frozen
There
in
we
4
go.
minutes.
I have cooked frozen food before.
but
I've
not
cooked
and
frozen food quotes.
sometimes with maybe cheese and tomato sauce and bread, like a Red Baron.
I'm not this much of a
or
food stuff.
DiGiorno, or a hot pocket pizza.
Yeah, hot dogs are all right.
I feel sick already. You listing
getting-
off
I'm getting
all
hungry.
of those.
I'm getting very hungry. So
We
pizza
didn't
ATM,
try the pizza ATM. It did not seem functional.
out of commission. I think it's worth before we head out this morning, because we're flying back today to stop by
It's
one
like
more
7:30 in the morning
time.
here.
If it's 24 hours,
Okay.
I want to try one more time.
I would totally eat it. I would try it.
I would. Yeah. I want a slice.
And then I'd go home and I'd make a pizza.
Right.
Yeah, this is.
And then to
this is
forget,
it.
you make a pizza to
To
forget.
forget.
So we're not staying in Geneva. We were in Geneva last night. Walked on just a very little bit. That's definitely the big town around these parts. But to get here, it was quite a trip to get here. We flew separately because Joey flew from LA.
LAX.
And Kishore and I flew from San Francisco. And your flight, how was your flight?
Oh, it was fine. LAX to London, 4-hour layover in London here. Everything seemed to work fine.
And you flew air.
I had the every seat I got, I didn't have anybody next to me, which was nice.
Oh.
So but I did all aisle, so I was in aisle.
And you flew Air New Zealand, who has randomly a LA to London connection, which seems to have no connection to New Zealand whatsoever.
No,
but
but
that's interesting.
Everything in the plane was all, "Hey, New Zealand, welcome to New Zealand. Try our wine." I'm like,
like the informational video,
Yeah,
the
everything
safety
there was-
video was.
it felt like I was traveling to New Zealand, except I got out in London.
That sounds more wow than what we got.
I think Air New Zealand is what I flew back on the way from our Weta trip.
Yeah.
And their safety video definitely is a montage of people from New Zealand and like scenic things you do in New Zealand.
So I think it was it was either Air New Zealand or someone in Australia or New Zealand. Did you see the safety video with the Men in Black parody?
No.
What?
I think
Now
that's
I
a
have to
newer Air
find
New
out.
Zealand. It's like they saw Virgin America's like big number and they're like, okay, we'll take a song that everyone knows, a Men in Black song, and kind of turn it into a safety video with two
Oh,
guys
yeah,
that
the
kind
whole
of look
song.
Like, the whole
Men
song
in Black,
is Men in Black.
Safety Defenders, Air New Zealand safety video. It's on YouTube right now. You can dig it up.
Oh, it'll be in the show notes. Don't worry.
It's a 5-minute video.
I'm pretty sure you can find a playlist on YouTube of all the safety airline videos.
Why would we do that to people?
Virgin America was pretty great.
We had a slightly different experience getting here.
Yeah, so originally we tried to fly Turkish airline, and that was a whole psychological journey itself because it was very cheap. It was like $600 round trip from San Francisco to Geneva.
I remember
which is
seeing
unbelievable.
I remember seeing an ad on the Super Bowl. We
And
were
that's
watching
right.
the Super Bowl together. I'm like, Morgan Freeman's on Turkish Airlines. This is
could
gonna be all right.
If they can afford Morgan Freeman, this must be an okay flight. And then Turkish Airlines canceled our flight back and offered us to stay in Istanbul for 3 days on the way back. Like, we can't do that.
Were they offering hotel?
No.
Oh,
No.
ballsy.
Yeah, this must be. We thinking it must be the tourist bureau that's cancel every third flight coming out of Turkish Istanbul to get people stuck in that city and increase local economy. Maybe does not make for happy travelers. We canceled that flight and we found by way of WOW Air.
Iceland's cheap airlines, like
Yes.
no frills.
Their Spirit, their Ryan.
Yes.
The big
totally.
thing with WOW Air, as it was advertised a couple months ago, was that they were going to offer flights to Iceland one way for under $100. Like $80, $90, you could get a flight from San Francisco or LA to Iceland for $90, which is insane.
And you guys flew Iceland straight to Paris.
Straight to Paris. Yeah, so
So does Iceland have like are they a big hub? Can you get to a lot of places in Europe?
There was at least 6 gates in that airport.
people definitely on our flight from San Francisco to Iceland were going to Amsterdam, we're going to London, we're going to Paris. So there definitely it is a hub.
So if you
to
can
go.
muscle through a good 10 hours of bad flying,
Yeah, so the context of bad flying is that it really is no frills. For what we paid for the flight, which was not $100, a little more than that, you can only bring on a backpack, a carry-on, not overhead carry-on, so under the seat carry-on was the only thing they allowed. Literally, no water, no coffee, no breakfast, no lunch, no dinner. Everything is extra. You'd have to pay for. We paid for an extra overhead carry. If you wanted to check in a bag, that's another.
what same
fee.
like probably $25, $30.
It's about that much. And they try to upsell you immediately on the website. And then the meals and the water, that's all in a brochure on the plane. So they have a cart that comes down like a couple times during the flight, and they will try to sell you bottled water and coffee and $10 beers, cans of beer. And
I'm still curious
maybe
about
a
that
meal.
Gull Iceland beer.
I
think I'm going to try it on the way
didn't
back.
consume a single thing on that flight.
I
It
didn't
was like
either.
the most bare bones.
jeez.
I'm gonna try to not drink water.
Shut
I
my
bought
body
own-
down.
yeah, shut my body down, and not eat anything that they try to sell me. And we made it.
If you wonder what it's like flying with Norm, is basically he wakes up at some point, gets Zelda out, and then the plane lands 8 hours later.
That's right. That literally is it. And then I'm constantly snacking on some yogurt and raisin trail mix.
That
and
you
that's
brought?
trail mix that I brought from the SFO air.
I think we only said a handful of words because he played Zelda the entire time. It was
8
actually
hours
kind of amazing.
Went by like that. Like Kishore was watching movies. Kishore listening
I
to
acted
music,
like a
reading
normal
books.
person and on airplane.
And I'm like, see ya. I'm going to Hyrule. See ya in 8 hours. And then from there, I went to Paris, which we amazing raced the whole thing.
Oh,
It
yeah.
was unbelievable. Our immigration, so we're leaving the United States, and right now in the U.S., we're very worried about what the immigration looks like getting back in the country. But leaving the country, we went through immigration in Iceland, and the line was long, and we were through the line in under 5 minutes. Like
You're Iceland or just landing to Paris.
in Iceland.
In Iceland. Okay.
In Iceland, our hour and a half layover, they had like a little cafe, a mart open, like a grocery mart where we got to buy sandwiches and juices, and then went through immigration. Literally, the passport agent looked at us, stern look, took the passport, stamped, and walked through.
It was very nice. It was like a half step short of like getting massages as you were going through immigration line.
Welcome.
Plenty
And
of time to go to the duty-free store to look at
then
all their Icelandic beer and the trinkets.
We landed in Paris. We were out the door in like 5 minutes.
Literally,
gate,
yeah.
Gate to curb,
We're
and
like,
then we're
we should
just
run
off.
to we should run to the immigration line, and no, we're literally just shoved us out the door, and we ran across the street, got a bus to our train station, and then went on a 3.5-hour train ride to Geneva.
High-speed train.
High-speed train. It's first time on high-speed train for me.
I gotta say, love traveling by train. The high-speed train, super smooth, and then it had this wonderful bar cart that had views out of the pastoral settings as you're going through like France on the way to Switzerland. And it's just gorgeous. I love traveling by train.
It was very much a Star Trek flying by spaceship experience. The
Oh, because
10-4
of the
experience.
doors.
You press the button on the doors, and the doors go, choo, and you walk in, and suddenly you're in this narrow, futuristic room with curved windows, and there's a bar, and you can sit there and drink your beer.
It didn't actually make that noise. It only makes that noise in Norm's head.
Did I tell you guys about my train ride to Italy or to Sicily from
No.
Italy? So Italy and Sicily are not connected by land, but the train that goes down there, I didn't realize this. I just booked a train ticket. Came down from Florence, hit the end of Italy, Calabria, and then it was just all of a sudden it was just darkness. And the guy came in. He's like, "Hey, upstairs!" And I opened the train door, and I'm in a big like hole. And I walk upstairs, and I'm on the sea. So the train gets onto a boat or a ship.
Wait, the whole train?
So yeah, the whole entire train during my sleep, I fell asleep in, I was like passing Rome. I fell asleep, woke up, and it was just dark. And I was like, we must be there. And they're like, no. And I can speak enough Italian at the time to like know what's going on. But they basically ushered me upstairs and realized that I was like in the sea or on the sea. The train gets on. A bunch of trains get onto this ship, and the ship sails off into the Sicily docks, and then the train gets back off, and you go.
Do the individual cars fold and line up, or
No,
how long are the cars?
I wasn't sure. I walked out, and you kind of it's like you're in a train station underground, and there's just there's a few different lines of trains, and I wasn't sure how they disconnected it. Like I slept through the whole thing. I really wish I woke up and just stayed through
It's called Rail to Sail.
it. Rail to sail. That's great.
Rail to Sail, and it literally looks like a tiny train station inside the deck of, inside the one of the
This is
decks of the ship.
incredible.
Yeah, it was a very and I came into it so cold, so I was like, wait, what is happening here?
Wow, the whole train, they do disconnect the cars as they're loading in, and then they track split off so they can roll lines of cars. That seems wildly inefficient also.
Yeah. Because Sicily's not that big of an island. Why did they need the train there?
Like they
Why
couldn't-
don't people just get on the boat?
train
Yeah.
car management must be something.
Well, half of those people were going to if you're going to the other side of Sicily, it'd be
How big is Sicily?
it's pretty. I mean, you could I think 4-hour drive across.
Oh, okay. That seems bigger than I think it is.
I might be wrong. I haven't. Never,
I think
never
we've
driven through
proven that we know very little about geography on this podcast so far.
Yep, traveling we're going to try to do more travel. Someone's going to do a lot of travel is actually one of our old friends from Whiskey Media, Drew Scanlon, who we worked with when we were teamed up with Giant Bomb. And Drew just left the website, giantbomb.com,
after like 8 years.
after 8 years of working there, and has launched a Patreon. So this is what we're talking about because his Patreon is a really interesting idea, and it's become wildly successful in the matter of 2 or 3 days. It's called Cloth Map. And what do you know about this, Joey?
Well, so if you haven't seen some of his travel videos, he did a few different travel logs with Giant Bomb, going to I think Iceland was one of his big ones. He went to North Korea, did a whole segment on Giant Bomb with that. But he's really into travel and kind of adventuring through travel and experience. And he's also a fellow video guy, so he's kind of combining the two and continuing this this worldwide journey while taking his video gear and cameras and documenting game culture from all around the world and putting together a series of videos and launched a Patreon to help fund that.
Yeah, it's a travel documentary series. He says it's a video series that explores how games impact the lives of people around the world. So whether it's what esports means in South Korea to what it means to go to Iceland and go to a big convention for EVE. He's done those things already. This is going to be like expanding on.
His Patreon is very concise, so you can get a great feel for what
It's
he's doing.
blown up, too.
Oh yeah.
He's making $18,000 a month with 2,700 patrons. People want to see this. It's going to be on YouTube.
And we're on like day 3, day
Yeah.
2 of his
So-
Patreon.
I want to see him play board games on this weird Sicily train.
Right, exactly. Take the train ride. Oh my, yeah, lots of interesting ideas. I think, good luck to him. Can't wait to see what it looks like. And if you want to support it and learn information, I think it's just patreon.com/clothmap. It's not easy. When we traveled with to the Arctic. We met a lot of YouTubers and vloggers and videographers who have a very concise, packed camera setup. Like Ben Brown, for example, and they introduced us to new ways of shooting with cameras like the Sony a7 II, while they would carry DSLRs, but also small video cameras. They weren't carrying big rigs, right? Like,
Yeah.
what did you think of their setups? And
It was interesting because I mean I've talked about it before, but I kind of the DSLR revolution kind of passed over me. I never got into like the smaller camera stuff. So seeing how they rigged out these tiny cameras with like Gorilla Pods or with the Joby stuff,
Yep.
and how they use those to complement their fast movement and getting through lots of different areas, and then also getting some great actuality stuff of just the world around them was cool. It was a very interesting way of seeing how a different production like that can work. And
yeah,
so
they never stopped filming almost. Like it was.
Yeah, but also like they have this one main camera, and like you get a sense for how much they edit their own stuff. They're editing constantly, kind of on the fly, and when you're going through a day and picking your shots, you kind of know, okay, I'm going to talk about this thing, I'm going to shoot these things, and then that stuff is all sequential to make editing a lot smoother. So you can get a format like that down, and then be inefficient, but also shooting a lot of the world around.
Yeah, those very, very cool. And that stuff is like, there are lots of gear we see. Was NAB's coming up?
NAB's coming up in April something, yeah.
Oh, Joe's gonna go.
I'll be
to
heading
NAB.
out there to go check out some cool stuff. Just kind of mess around and meet some people.
We're going to get to this and what we've been testing, but you've been testing a lot more gear, like
Yeah.
camera gear for us.
So I've kind of recently moved down to Los Angeles working remotely, and I'm down there by myself without a studio. So I've been kind of thinking about making my own little studio and messing out with some. I have a huge garage now, so I want to try out some lights, try out some different gear and different shooting environments. So I've been working with B&H a bit and getting some more gear and also with Blackmagic a bunch and getting some other stuff to try out and test.
All right, we're going to talk about that soon. But first,
Let's talk about some pop culture.
this is the most low rent thing.
Pop culture news. What's been going on in pop culture? We've been away from the States for so long. South by Southwest is happening right now. There's a lot of news coming out of South by. Now we're going to preface this conversation by saying we're only going to talk about movies that we either have seen. We're not going to talk about trailers because Joey does not watch trailers.
Oh, that's right.
But we can talk about the ideas and things that are popping up and what's happening in the movie and TV space. So at South by Southwest, there were panels to show new footage for Alien Covenant. Ridley Scott and the actors were there. But people have been really buzzing about one new movie. I think, was the Trainspotting 2 movie also shown there as well?
There's a Trainspotting 2, like they find a dirtier toilet?
I think Danny
happens?
Boyle made a Trainspotting 2.
It takes place how many years later they all kind of come back. It's out. I mean, reviews are out.
Oh, okay, so I guess that one's not bad.
They all come back together after a few years? Or
Is
they
it like, it's like
all
Before
cleaned up?
Sunrise?
No, they're not. They're definitely not cleaned up. I read the premise for this movie, and it's definitely it is a sequel to Trainspotting.
Oh, wow. It's with the same people.
People.
Just not
a lot older.
thematically.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, where are these chunkies?
It's already
a little bit later?
released in the UK.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
it's getting reviews and stuff on Rotten
Wow.
Tomatoes.
But the buzz of South by seems to be a new movie by Edgar Wright called Baby Driver, which was screened there. And I don't know much about this film. People have seen trailers for this, but it's been a long time since Edgar Wright made a big film.
So is this released in South by, or they do? So
They did.
I've seen movies there that have been released like a year later. So they do like an early screening, kind of
It's
get
an early
notes.
screening.
Okay, so we're not going to see this movie nationally until
August is when it comes out.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not. I don't think it's the type of circuit where they were looking for distributors, like a Sundance, but it was definitely a early look. And it's been a while since we've been to South by. They did a lot of those things. There are a lot of, you watch a movie, a premiere there,
Yeah.
and then they'll have distribution later that summer, and they get the buzz up and going.
Yeah, I've seen movies released 2 years after I've seen them at South by, which is a trip.
Or sometimes they don't even get distribution,
Yeah.
wide distribution at all.
And Alamo has like a big presence now, kind of buying up movies and releasing them under their label.
This has an impressive cast. Baby Driver.
Yeah. Do you want to know anything about the cast either?
Yeah, I think I read the cast, but I forgot it already. So
It's the lead is the kid from Fault in Our Stars, Ansel Elgort.
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 Wow, how
Elgort
did
some-
you
I don't
know that?
Because Danica used to work for the writer of Fault in Our Stars, so I had to watch that movie. But it's him. It's it's Lily James who played Cinderella in the Disney Cinderella reboot, and then it has a bunch of mobsters.
Yeah, John Hamm
Kevin Spacey.
and Jamie Foxx.
So we have none of the Shaun of the Dead cast in here, right? We're not seeing. We're not seeing any of the.
This is not a Simon Pegg.
Yeah.
And Nick. What's his
on all
name?
names.
Who was in He was in like the.
You know Ansel Elgort, but not.
I'm sorry for all the space fans out there, and
Yeah.
also the. He was in the.
He was in a tango movie, right? Did you see the tango romantic comedy? Never
There's
mind.
people yelling at us right now.
Wait.
about who this guy
The
is.
last thing I saw him in, and I don't know why I can't remember his name. Simon Pegg.
Nick Frost.
Nick
Frost.
Frost. Nick Frost was a dwarf in the Snow White sequel.
The Huntsman.
The Huntsman. He was in The Huntsman as a dwarf.
Oh.
Yeah, he has lost a little bit of credibility in my eyes. But this is Edgar Wright, and it looks, it sounds like it's incredibly stylish. People are raving about it on Twitter, so it's more Scott Pilgrim-like, I think, than the Coronado trilogy. World's End was the last movie.
He's one of my favorites. I'm really excited for this movie.
Yeah, you guys see that? Like, the people are sharing on Facebook now. The At World's End. You guys saw At World's End, right? Where it's not a big spoiler to say they fight a bunch of robots. They're androids.
Yes.
And the androids, like
You might remember, right?
yeah, they fight androids. Like, it's not zombies. You know, it's robots, but they like fight these robots.
It's like alien robots. Right?
Alien robots.
Yeah.
But it's like the design of the robots are really cool because when the heads get punched off, they're almost like toys, like little pegs that get snapped in. Like so, it's like. But those heads, one of the heads was actually an animatronic head. There's a video going around on YouTube showing how, with 9 servos, that head was animated with the fleshy silicone.
How is that
skin
going
on
around
top.
now? It's been years.
Whatever, I don't know how Facebook works. things get shared around on Facebook and get a millions of views. You guys want to talk about Logan? I want to talk a little bit more about Logan because now I'm with people who have seen it.
I
Kishore,
still haven't seen it, but it's okay.
I seen it twice.
You
seen
saw
it
it twice?
I-
Holy
I mean,
smokes!
that good that you saw it twice?
I saw it once by myself. Yeah, the day it came out, and then I took Andrea to see it.
Wow. What did you think about Logan as a film?
As a film, I loved pretty much most of it, and I loved it more the second time I saw it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Why more the second time? Was it because going in there's too high expectations that they have to like just get through it the once,
No, it was
get it out of your system?
it's kind of a heavy movie. There's a lot going on, and there's a lot to kind of uncover in some ways. Like, we're taking place much later than any of the X-Men movies that we've seen, and we are kind of forced to. And the director does a great job at not kind of feeding us this information. He kind of trickles out this information about what happened, where these characters are at, what's going on in the world, and as a viewer, you are kind of asked to participate in figuring this out. And the second time, after I knew everything, I could just watch all the nuances of this movie kind of play out.
The way you're describing it is like the least X-Men description ever. Like least superhero.
Well, the least
style.
like family X-Men.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, this Old Man Logan, like these comics that are kind of. And this movie actually reminded me a lot of the mid 2000 kind of Wolverine, like spin-off yarns. Like at that point, he had a lot of the Wolverine single comics. He was away from the X-Men, doing these kind of edgier, like adult-themed stuff of helping figure out the child slave situation.
Frank
and,
Miller, Wolverine.
Yeah, but a lot of people are coming in at that point. Like they had different teams coming in for like 4 or 5 arc runs, and then they brought in Sabretooth and kind of brought a relationship to Victor and Logan that was really quite interesting, and less of just the opposite, the Venom, Spider-Man, Sabretooth, Wolverine stuff. So this reminded me a lot of all those yarns, and then also the themes from Old Man Logan carried over. And
I don't know if you want to go into spoiler territory too much. The movie's been out for like 3 weeks. It's okay. Like if you don't, if you want to hear about Logan, then you can turn off the podcast for the next 45 seconds.
Can I guess what happens?
Well, no. That's not. I don't want to talk about the end. But I do want to talk about this one plot device that they put into the film that I was a little bit uneasy with. That I wasn't sure needed to be in the film.
Is it early on in the movie, or is it the second half?
The most self-referential thing. That's in the film.
What is it?
I think it's not too big of a spoiler.
It's in the trailer. I watched the trailer after the movie.
It's in the trailer, so it's that the fact that in this timeline, in this version, which is supposed to be the culmination, like it's a timeline, a culmination of the Bryan Singer Wolverine and that X-Men. The X-Men at some point have become a part of popular culture, and there are X-Men comic books in the world of the movie.
As we know them, the X-Men comic books that we
Yeah,
like,
like
they are
actually
the same.
drawn the same style. And the original
Mm-hmm.
comics, they're not like they're not pulling Chris Claremont's out of the rack and putting them in the film as props. Like it's actually key to the storyline where the young girl Laura reads X-Men comics and sees Logan through the eyes of the comic book.
Oh, that's great. Did they sell the comic books?
That's what I was wondering if they actually created, because they did have the same style. Like, do you think they made an entire comic?
22 pages with ads. Like they definitely flipped through a couple pages.
Yeah.
But they had like the Cyclops.
But there was
like,
one page in specific that they kept going back to. But yeah.
Yeah, where like the X-Men were leading through like this remote area and going to this land of Eden. But they had the comics like they were drawn like the X-Men comics. Now you never saw the characters wear those costumes, and the way they refer to it is Logan picks up a comic and goes, "These are all stories, or half of them, maybe a quarter of it actually happened, and not the actual way how it happened." So they're acknowledging that they were inspired by what they did in the cinematic world, but they never wore those costumes. It wasn't like the leather Bryan Singer X-Men costumes. It was clearly a callback to how we remember the X-Men comics. So very, very metaphysical in that sense. Like,
So I'm just reading about this. The Verge did an article about these comics, and initially they only made 10 covers, sorry. But then he released additional artwork on Twitter from the inside. So it's 10 fake covers, and Joe Quesada actually penciled 4 additional pages for the inside that's on Twitter. We can put a link to them. And it's like Kitty Pryde walking through walls.
Exactly.
And like,
right, but they're drawn like the
Yeah.
X-Men of the 80s, which is never how the X-Men were in the cinematic world, the Fox cinematic world's ever represented that
I think
way.
the closest we got was at the end of the Wolverine. He opens up the case, and
That was a deleted scene.
Oh, it was.
That was the deleted scene where he opens up the case and it's the blue and gold
Yeah.
Wolverine mask.
But we've
and
never
then
seen him wear it.
And you never, but you imagine that if they have any type of continuity in this world, that where he goes from there at the end of the Wolverine is where he goes on his adventures. Like, actually, the Wolverine, where he's in Japan, is like the end of the Wolverine origin story for the X-Men universe, because he has like.
Well, we're seeing that movie post X3.
Right, by that point, he's not really like. It's just like the Dark Knight. At that point, there's not really an X-Men. They're not really exposed to the world.
Yeah.
They're still kind of just doing their own things. But he goes on the adventures, and those are the adventures we assume, because in Days of Future Past, they have like futuristic uniforms, and he's wearing a uniform that has the blue and gold.
Charles
accents
Xavier
on
has
it.
his floating.
And right, so like you're talking about in between the end of the Wolverine and that possible future of Days of Future Past, are where those adventures possibly happened in that timeline.
Yeah.
here's one other note from the article, is that the reason they weren't real books is Marvel denied them permission to use real books.
wow.
So they wanted to.
Yeah, it sounds like it, that Dan Panosian, I think that's the name of the director, wanted to do real issues, but Marvel said no.
I don't know how I feel about it. I think it took me out of the film a little bit.
I was going to ask, like, what's your opinion on this? Do you feel like slighted at all about it? Like, do you feel like they're kind of disrespecting the comic?
I don't think it disrespected the comic, but I think it took out. If their whole point was, we are like, you can watch I think the great thing about Logan is you could watch it as a film without being a fan of X-Men comics. You can be a fan of the character Wolverine and Hugh Jackman, but it works well as a mutant version of the Road or a mutant version.
I think for some of the like the first half wait to hit, you do need to know the X-Men kind of exist.
But you don't need to know like the story of X3 and
No,
you need to know, like the Jean Grey relationship. None of that comes into it.
You can come into this movie just after being an X-Men comic fan from back when.
But having the comics in there was the Fox way of not throwing a ton of mutants in this film. Like they definitely don't throw a ton of mutants, traditional mutants in this film. There are some mutants, but it was definitely their self-referential way. And I think it's okay because you can say like, oh wait, okay. Like in the Ultimates X-Men comic, the X-Men are celebrities. They become like in the public. Mm-hmm. And in some sense, at the end of X-Men 2, they expose themselves to the President of the United States, like we're here to stick around, and people and that's why the Mutant Registration Act. So the world knows about mutants. So it makes sense that like there's awareness, but to manifest that in the very medium and the very art style that we understand, the X-Men universe.
But also to create them as heroes in a world where, like, this is supposed to be a world where mutants are almost hated. Like,
Yeah.
how do you get to this point where they're all of a sudden they're
saw that.
childhood heroes? Yeah.
You never saw a generation grow up where they were heroes and then suddenly decline to the.
Would you want to see that movie where the mutants go in decline?
Where the mutants were heroes
Yeah.
at all?
Like an Ultimates version of.
I don't know.
Yeah. I don't think it would exist in like this Fox universe of Marvel.
And I think they really did it for that emotional, for that one. They did it for the line where like, Logan says, "These are just stories." It was a tool for his relationship with the girl, because her perception of him is only through these eyes. And so at the end, where there's like an X logo that pops up in frame, it makes a little more sense, because that's still how she sees him. And there is like that very last shot of like where the kid is holding the Wolverine toy, and I'm like, literally like a Wolverine toy that you could have bought in the 90s, like the blue and gold Wolverine toy, and he's holding it, and the camera just close up on his face and on the Wolverine toy. I'm like, that's a little on the nose.
That's a little too much.
That's a little too much.
We were with you at the comics, but now.
Yeah.
Now it's...
I think I misspoke earlier. It was director James Mangold asked Marvel's permission. They said no on Real Comics, but gave them access to Joe Quesada and the artist Dan Panosian to create these custom
He's been
books.
pretty vocal about the Marvel movies not being great.
Oh.
Like he has some problems with the way the Marvel universe is kind of portraying.
When you say
people.
who, James Mangold?
Yeah, like he approached Logan as like, we're not trying to make anything Marvel-like. Like,
Got it.
One last bit of pop culture news, and this is just breaking as we're recording this. Hey everyone, Warner Brothers is seriously going to consider rebooting The Matrix.
Oh, I heard about this.
You mean just like flicking on and off the switch?
That's
for
what I
this?
would think,
Like,
right?
reset?
Start Matrix Online?
That
Matrix
would be
Online, everyone?
hilarious if they just released a video of somebody like walking into a server room and flipping the
Why
switch.
is the
on
switch
and
off?
on. We rebooted the Matrix.
What do you think about that? And two, how do you think if they're going to do it, if they say, okay, this is a franchise that's beloved, it's at some point it's 20 years old. 20 years old. What would be the most elegant way they could reboot the Matrix?
Not reboot the Matrix?
Well, yes, the answer is agree. But if they were going to do it, what would be and this is according to the Hollywood Reporter, with Michael B. Johnson potentially to star.
I mean, I can see them doing like I could have seen like a Netflix show handling it in the same way the Animatrix, of like taking all these different stories and putting in like a.
They can't make a lot of money that way.
Yeah, no, you're correct. Yeah, movie wise.
And Zach Penn is in talks. Zach
Oh,
Penn,
no.
I know, who wrote X-Men 3 and worked on Avengers, and so how could they elegantly do it? Would it be maybe in the Star Trek 2009 reboot vein, where because the story of the Matrix is a story of a cyclical battle of the robots, they tell another
new
cycle
Matrix, yeah.
and not be a kind of meta reboot where it's just like telling the same story with different actors, but make it part of a continuity. Then you get the option of of bringing some characters back or alluding to certain things.
I have no idea how you would. I mean, I don't think they're going to start off in our world. I think they're going to start off in the real world.
Oh, you think it would be the
I
reverse?
don't think they're going to try to go for the reveal like any
Well,
kind of,
right, and so much of the Matrix happened because back in '98, when I don't know about you guys, when I saw the Matrix, I didn't know that's what that movie was about. The trailers,
I didn't either.
The trailers were all about martial arts, like crazy, death-defying martial arts. The advertising campaign was
kung fu.
What is the Matrix? Was the advertising campaign, and I don't think you comprehended the idea that humans were slaves, enslaved by robots in a fictional digitized world until you watched it, which was one of the best parts of that.
I watched it thinking it was going to be like an Office Space up until when he like removes his mouth, and I was like, "What is happening?"
David Lynch just getting here. I think they're going to do. They're going to start us off. This is all just speculation on my end. They're going to start you off in this real world, right? And then we're going to be exposed to the Matrix that is alien-like and unworldly, and that will be the craziness.
So Wachowski siblings are not involved in this.
Right? Like a whole new Matrix, but
like
it's
a
not
utopian Matrix.
like a Matrix that will, surprise us. It won't be this world. No.
No, I'm just I'm still struggling with this idea of a reboot. Like it feels too soon to me.
Yeah.
So my fear is that because so many people love the Matrix for its pseudo philosophy and for its groundbreaking special effects, that the films are going to hold those two things as things that they need to reinvigorate. Like, well, it's the Matrix. We got to do something crazy with this. We got to experiment with a new type of filmmaking because this is what the Matrix stands for. Or we got to have some groundbreaking new ideas in the context of that world, as opposed to just telling a straightforward story.
I
don't need the studios to
What's
think
the new
about
bullet time?
exactly what is the new bullet time for 2019, 2018.
I feel like they're going to try to like leak in the whoa. And like, you know, they're going to try to do nods to the original, which would make it terrible. I think the current Matrix is not allowing me to consider this idea of rebooting the Matrix. That's the problem.
Once you have the stake, you can't plug back in.
No, never. Clearly you guys are outside the Matrix and you can even consider this.
I would like to, if they're going to do it, telling it within the context of the Matrix being rebooted multiple times, and maybe going into the past.
Like past Matrixes?
Past Matrices.
Yeah,
that
where
were
it's
to
not
by
as
the
good.
architect.
Or like things were slightly glitchy and kind of off, and like.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, like, Westworld was a straight up reboot, in the sense that there was no continuity with the 1973 Westworld, and people had speculated what if the HBO show, as it was airing, what if HBO's Westworld was a continuation, like the accident they talked about 30 years ago was the 30 or 50 years ago was the movie that we saw, but it didn't need to be that. It held on its own. So it all depends on who runs it, how they write the script, and who directs it.
So aside from Zach Penn, we have no other names attached to this.
Michael B. Jordan,
it
was the one, and Joel Silver, the producer of the original Matrix.
What's weird, like to have an actor attached
right
before
right
anything else seems.
Well, I mean, it's how they sell a lot of movies, right?
And a lot of the original Matrix also, it was a culmination of so many things. Like the first time Western audiences have been really exposed to that type of martial arts with that choreography. They brought in the choreographer from a lot of Master Ping from a lot of classic martial arts movies. And so like there were like filmmaking things that they did, and it was right at the edge of like digital filmmaking, and like that's why bullet time worked. Like to do it today, it feels like they're just going to throw money at making some special effect. It doesn't bring anything new to it. We'll all watch Cloud Atlas again.
I didn't see it the first
Ascending.
time. I didn't see it the first time.
All right. I think that's it for pop culture news. We're going to jump into our next segment, which is... Actually, before we talk about tech news and CERN, I do want to thank the sponsor of this week's podcast, and that sponsor is Crizal No Glare lenses. When your lenses aren't clear, whether it's from smudges, scratches, or even because of reflections, it can be so frustrating. After all, glasses are supposed to help you see better. Thankfully, Crizal No Glare lenses offer resistance to distracting blemishes, giving you the clearest vision possible. That means no more fingerprint smudges from taking your glasses on and off, or scratches from cleaning your lenses on your shirt. And because Crizal No Glare lenses stay clear and reduce distracting glare, your friends and family can see your eyes better, not just your glasses. Look better, feel better, and more importantly, stay immersed in the world around you, not just your lenses. Go to Crizal.com, CRIZAL.com, and start living life in clear. Thank them for supporting this week's episode of This Is Only a Test. And now let's talk about CERN.
Yeah,
that's
let's
some high
talk about
technology.
CERN. Yeah, well, let's start with the history that we saw. I mean, like to zoom out, CERN is this amazingly giant facility with thousands upon thousands of scientists, technicians, engineers throughout it. I was really blown away at the scale of the facility, first and foremost.
We spent 2 days there and saw a good number of things. How much of it do you think we saw of all of CERN?
1%? What would you guess?
The entire facility?
I mean, we saw some pretty big things.
Yeah, we saw the big ones.
We saw the detectors and stuff, and we'll talk about that.
Organizationally, I think when a lot of people think of CERN, from the pop culture sense, they think of the LHC. The LHC is a particle accelerator, the big one, the one that was opened almost 10 years ago now, 2008, which is that circular track, 28 kilometers around France and bits of Switzerland. But CERN is not the LHC. CERN started off with a bunch of particle accelerators.
Yeah, I mean, CERN is really the overarching organization, the European conglomerate that basically built all of this stuff. And there's an amazing amount of research and data control facilities. I mean, I guess we should talk about we went to where the internet began.
That's right.
As like a first step. Like we went and saw that plaque that said Tim Berners-Lee was in this office.
Wi-Fi was not great at that very spot.
That was pretty funny.
Yeah.
We got to see the actual computer, right? Didn't we? We saw a computer and the keyboard. It was like in a museum type thing.
The next computer that the internet, the World Wide Web as we know it, HTTP, was programmed on and developed on.
We learned about the first image.
The first image that was shared on the World Wide Web was of a musical group, the CERNettes, that were physicists and friends and family of people working here.
They're a band, right?
A band, yeah. And then we went down to see detectors. So along the particle accelerator, where they run protons at high energy, high density protons, and collide them, the places where they collide are at these detection points, experimental points. And how many? 4 of them are on.
Yeah, we should say there's multiple tracks that are happening. There's different sort of accelerators. It's just the LHC is the one that is the most. It's the big one that's most known.
And they stack.
Yeah, they kind of do have relations to each other. So there's the SPS, which is the super proton synchrotron, I think.
Yep.
That actually, is a smaller track that helps accelerate some of the protons that go into the LHC. They have some linear tracks where they can just smash stuff into a wall or a target. But the LHC has basically 4 main detectors on it that represent really large experiments. The Atlas, which is what I think everyone associates when you hear LHC or CERN, that's what you think of as this giant detector, this sort of hexagonal type immense
4
structure.
stories tall. It's underground, 80 meters, and it's the one we saw last time.
Yeah, and we saw again this week, which was amazing. There's the LHC-B, which is a detector that we didn't visit either time. The Alice experiment, or Alice experiment, that's deep within France, that is also like a giant magnet detector, except it's more of a conventional magnet than what we saw with Atlas. And then the CMS. Did you go to the CMS last time?
We did not go to CMS. It's on
so
the
we
other
didn't go
side.
to this one either. This time either. There's this like healthy rivalry between all the experiments. Like every time we went and got lunch, they were like, CMS is better. They're like subtly like picking us and like picking fights with each other, which I think is great. The detectors themselves, like the enormity of it. And you saw it a couple years ago. What was your reaction like walking back in?
It holds up. I mean,
we saw a different angle too.
Yeah.
Like, this was.
And so you go down these 80 meters, and we were allowed a little more freedom this time to go along the walkways, to chat with some of the physicists, shoot some video. But being able to walk around, physically around the walkways, to see like the depth of it, and to see like the wiring, the electronics, and all that work.
We got to go to the very top and look down on it. It's huge.
Like and under the cavern, and see the hole where they would lower the materials down into the cavern. Like it's an engineering project that even in person you can't comprehend its scale and how this thing was built.
It's funny, like the enormity of it makes it really hard to digest. And I kept looking for like smaller things that I could focus on because it was almost just too much to look at.
Yeah.
And I think Joey and I looked at this. We're like, the cable management in here is ridiculous. It is unbelievable, the cable management in here. But I think the thing that was interesting to me is I'm used to that like head-on image of Atlas, what it looks like when it's in operation. And right now the machine's down. It's going to turn back on in a few months. But it was open. Yeah. So they were actively working on it. So they had the machine sort of split open down the middle so that workers could get in and do some minor refurbishments inside.
That was a good sense of scale too, seeing guys in there just doing things. You're like, I don't know what you're affecting here.
So like we could see like the pipe that the protons were going through as they would smash together in the detector, and like we had Steve, our physicist guide, was showing us like, and here's where the muons like off that collision would go through the detector, and that's where like that's where the little bump that gave us as those muons sort of decayed, gave us some indication of the Higgs boson, which is kind of amazing.
Now, we didn't get to go into the tunnels, and that's the place where it's very rare to allow anyone down there outside of the engineers working on it. But the 28-kilometer track, that was off limits. So no lambda symbols that we could find at all. Although there were some markings on walls from like engineers like playing like Hangman or something.
I thought about writing a lambda in Sharpie and just
like cell phone pictures.
PDF.
Yeah, they're very open to us to like filming and taking pictures.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And like they said, 200,000 people visit CERN every year. They do offer tours, so it's not completely closed off. But we got to see some cool factories and facilities where they make some of the stuff.
This is the stuff that actually blew me away. I think the enormity of the detectors is kind of overwhelming, and you see like basically things that have revolutionized science. But at the end of the day, they're not. It's not really tangible. It's like so big. But we went to these workshops. Like we actually went into one of their main workshops where they just had giant machines just machining metal for different components.
It was a machine shop with 15 massive CNCs,
like
7-axis CNCs, milling giant aluminum blocks, welding titanium welding chambers.
That I think was my favorite thing I saw. They had this special box that they had to, buy. That was a glove box that was sealed off, and they would fill it with argon gas so that they could weld titanium together, which is just crazy in and of itself. You were like walking around there shooting all sorts of stuff in there.
Yeah. It was. I mean, coming from Atlas, like as you walk around there, not only do they need to machine a lot of the stuff for all the equipment, but they also like structurally, like if you start looking around, like we talk about cable management, but you start really looking at like how they got these things elevated and set up, like you can tell it's all custom made. So that was my first question. Like you guys had to be able to build this stuff on site, right? And like, huge machine shop.
Yeah.
You can see it all there.
I kind of thought that we'd lose Simone somewhere in that machine shop, that she would just like hide in the corner and just try to, suddenly we'd get a note a couple weeks later that Simone is working at CERN in the machine shop, and she was going to stay there.
Just haunts the machine shop.
Look, every quarter we went around, she's like, "What is that?"
They had a titanium 3D printing machine.
Oh wow, that thing was
very
incredible.
cool. We didn't get to see it operate, but see some of the small pieces that it had printed out.
They would use titanium powder and
and laser and sinter it together, and then we saw the robotics facility. So this is a place we actually didn't get to shoot all the video, but it definitely was super cool. They build robots here to run through the tunnels and perform maintenance, because there's oftentimes in some places there's radiation. Not any of the places we went, but along the cavern, because some of this facility is old.
I think that's the most impressive thing was the robots would run maintenance on an area that wasn't designed for robots to run maintenance, right? It was all designed for humans to run this.
Yes, parts of the tunnel where there's actually a monorail that goes through the entire circle, and that monorail is built for people to ride to build the tunnel
Or send equipment down.
deliver the equipment
down. And now the monorail does not have a train, but it's used as a track for a robot to go along the perimeter and then visually inspect, and perform maintenance, and even be a firefighting robot in case there's ever a fire along that track.
We saw some videos of some development projects of humans like in the Ripley, what was it? What's the
Power loader?
The power loader,
Exoskeleton, yeah.
like where they would have arms that would virtually connect to the robot remotely, and then they would use these arms to actually manipulate the robot to actually turn things, and that was weird seeing like humans operate robots remotely in this kind of haptic way. I thought that was incredibly fascinating. What about the magnets?
Yeah,
that was
so
my favorite
magnets,
facility.
like particle accelerators run on these supermagnets.
Yeah, we need magnets to curve the beam, the particles, so they hit each other. We need magnets to like push them down so they collide.
So describe how the magnets are structured along the ring.
So with a large ring, we basically have two areas that magnets have. Like as you're trying to curve these particles to go around the ring, you have dipole magnets. And when I say dipole magnets, they're big. They're like 8 meters long. And all they're really doing is taking the proton beam and just curving it a little bit each way. And these magnets are incredibly powerful. I think the ones that are currently in the LHC have a magnetic field of 5 Tesla or maybe 6 Tesla, something like that. I'm sorry, it's 8.5 Tesla. And they're upgrading it to go to 11 Tesla. These are orders of magnitude greater than the Earth's magnetic field. And then when they get to the detectors, they have quadrupole magnets. So they have 4 magnets in there, so they can basically take that curved beam and push these 2 beams together so they collide just at the precise right location.
Like at a slight angle, come up and
Exactly. And most of the magnets are magnets that are cooled by helium. So they're superconductive magnets. So they get cooled down to like 2 Kelvin. And that's so they have incredibly low resistance, but there's an incredible amount of current through the facility that's helping power these magnets, even the ones that are at these liquid cooled. And we got to see how they're making the prototypes of new magnets, which was really cool, where they would take material, wind it on a...
Actually coiling
the superconductive material, then they'd like have to bake it and...
case it in resin.
Yeah, put it in a mold, encase it in resin in a vacuum chamber so there's like no air in it. And then they'd have to like shape it and push them together. It was like kind of an amazing like process just to make a prototype magnet.
And everything we're talking about is the scale-wise is bigger than you can imagine. Like when we say bake it in oven, that's like a room-size oven, a room-size vacuum chamber.
You put a 5 foot, 2 foot it's magnet.
Yeah, big giant things that they're manufacturing locally right here.
But I think my favorite thing that we saw is we got to go to a lab that's working on a new detector. And what was amazing to me is like they let us touch a piece of the real detector that's going into the machine in a few years.
Yeah.
I still don't understand why they let me touch that.
You're wearing gloves.
Yeah, but no, it was crazy. We got to like take part in like some of the, how they do some QA on the pieces, and it was just one really small piece of one detector. So, but it was this like, big tables, like 10-foot tables covered with this, really thin detecting material, and it'd have to go through all of these stages of QA and processing for this one sheet, and there's like 2,000, 3,000 of those that have to go in to build this one layer of one detector. And there's like going to be, 15 or so detectors in the upgraded LHC. So the enormity of the project was really coming through. And I'm pretty sure I broke it. No, I'm kidding.
They also took us down to the data computing center where we saw just data storage in rows and rows and rows of server racks.
Very warm room.
And thousands of cassettes, magnetic tape, passive storage.
They gave us some.
We took some old magnetic tape. They have to keep on upgrading. They have to keep on backing it up and keep on sending it out to other data centers around the world because it's a ton of information, terabytes, petabytes a day, and we got to take some old data tapes. That was nice.
They do sell them in the store too.
They do?
Yeah, I
Sun
saw
system data tapes?
And they got like a CERN sticker, a big CERN. They look nice.
Oh yeah.
There was like a kilometer of tape, is what the guy told me, inside each one of those cassettes.
A kilometer, and they had thousands of those.
Wow.
Yeah. I kind of want now. I want to find like a tape machine that I can like stick it in.
See what's on
take
it.
a look at some of the data.
It's more data than exists on the internet per year that they're collecting.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a ridiculous amount of data that they're generating. You and your hard
They
hat.
also had hard hats. We bought hard hats. It says CERN on them. Yeah, we wore some similar hard hats. They're real hard hats. They can actually use them.
They are certified hard hats.
What do you walk away with after going to a facility like this? Because it feels alien to me to go inside one of these facilities.
Norm?
I mean, the people are all super nice, and they're all really excited about their work. And while we didn't get to chat with a lot of the maintenance people, at least the physicists are all like, this is not work that's done. And it's all ongoing, and it's all like, just because there was a Higgs detection, like discovery 5 years ago, like they're already thinking well into the 2020s and beyond.
And you felt that sense of like ambition and discovery, like
Like,
we are trying to uncover these
understand the secrets of the universe.
Yeah.
And all the physicists, that's why they do what they do. They're trying to better understand the universe, and they all feel how important that is, even though that's not a very tangible thing. It's not flying to the moon. It's not going to Mars, sending a robot to Mars. And that's itself a different type of enormous challenge. But a lot of the stuff here is coming up with things theoretically, and then having, when you finally understand that, or see proof of that, that is an enormous thing. That the humans can do that. That's crazy.
I still walk away with. I think the lasting image to me is that there's so many flags flying in front of CERN, and you see that represented in all the people there. There's so many nations and so many engineers, technicians, scientists from all over the world coming together for this, kind of amazing project to try to understand what the universe looked like, 1 microsecond in. And building that kind of time machine together, there's something really hopeful for me, seeing everyone come together. Maybe science can be an instrument of amazing peace and collaboration that leaves me very hopeful for the future. And I don't think I could work at a place like that. That is that enormous. Yeah. Like, I barely survived that cafeteria.
Oh my God. They have a massive cafeteria that all the science, everyone, physicists are all mingling with each other, and then tour groups and schools, and we're just.
That was kind of there was a viciousness in that cafeteria about like getting food and getting in line too.
Also, like, the American food was not very good there. They had
Nor should it
hot
be.
dogs.
The giant hot dog.
Like
Nor
a hot
should it
dog
be.
was at least it was like.
It was
a foot
about
and a half
I think it was
long.
like 2 long hot dogs put into like a baguette, like a half baguette.
And just like sauces everywhere, and people were very excited. This is my American hot dog day.
Le Big Hot Dog, it was still labeled.
It did not look good.
Yeah, Swiss
And,
beef,
like,
not the best.
All the American food looked bad, but it tells you something about their perception of us, I think.
We should not be eating. We should not be seeking out American food in France.
So
we're short on time.
We
I
are.
think we should skip down to what we've been testing.
exactly.
Testing this week. Hey, what have you guys been testing?
Oh, VR Minute and Moment of Science will be back next week.
They'll be back next week. We actually have to run to the airport in about 15 minutes or so. So let's quickly talk about some gear we've been testing. Joey, you didn't bring it on this trip, but you've had the Blackmagic Design Ursa Mini cinema camera, 4.6K. 4.6K camera. This is higher than 4K resolution. And you had that for a couple of weeks. You tested it. What did you think about that camera?
Well, you can probably see there's a video on the site right now
Yes.
going in a little bit of detail, but I shot a whole review. I spent some time with this camera. I was really interested in it for like last year, so I got it for about a month. Finished shooting the review, and then they immediately released a new version of this camera addressing every single issue that I had. I mean, it wasn't a whole lot of issues because I was really into I really wanted to dive into the image quality of this camera, but I also was excited about the Blackmagic coming out with a versatile camera that can be a tested camera, or a film camera, or something you take on short films. And this this new version is seeking that is looking to fill that that need for that camera that I wanted. The old version did not, and I decided to scrap the review and shoot it more about the Blackmagic color space and image quality and how to deal with digital film, what Blackmagic calls the digital film space, and that is the flat profile.
And they were one of the first big companies to make cameras that really forced you to use that space. The Blackmagic Cinema camera, you had to really use grading. They make the software too, DaVinci Resolve.
Yeah, so so DaVinci was a color correction and color grading program that they eventually acquired, and then came out with these lines of cameras that at the time could only do a very flat or log profile that you would have to take into a color grading program. So that's what first interested me in that, was learning some higher grade like color correction and being forced to deal with that color science, but also just to learn how, like flat and log profile shooting is kind of a niche thing for prosumers, but it's very popular in the professional market, and Blackmagic is kind of looking to shorten that gap, and I find that really interesting, and I want to get my hands on this camera. So you can see a little more on the side of the video about how to deal with that color space. But I'll probably do a more in-depth camera review on the newer camera, just because I didn't get to play with the newest version of it.
And that was the Blackmagic Ursa Mini Pro. Is the new
Ursa Mini
camera.
Pro, yeah.
Is the one that, and it's like a $5,000 camera, but they did this whole pricing thing where you can upgrade if you bought the one from last year.
Yeah, the new
They
version
iterate.
is the exact same price as the old version was. Came out the exact day of the press release, and if you have the Ursa or like some other cameras, you can trade them in and work some deal out with them.
Did either of you bring some new gear on this trip?
I did. So I brought the Feiyutech MG gimbal, which is the gimbal for DSLR, and we used a little bit of it on the CERN trip, but they had some balancing issues.
Yeah, you couldn't quite get your Mark IV to.
It was
like
so. I have the
hold.
heaviest camera you can put on it with probably the heaviest lens, and it's a 3-axis gimbal. So what you think of when you see like a drone on the bottom of a drone with a 3-axis gimbal to stabilize, it's kind of a lot of these are replacing Steadicams these days in the prosumer market, and they're active stabilization, but the camera itself has to be balanced on all 3 axes, so the motors aren't taxed, and balancing on this gimbal is a very tricky process.
And how was so this is a two-handed model, like, right? We reviewed the one-handed.
We read the one-handed model that works with GoPros, and they still sell that, and actually have a one-handed model that works with iPhones, which work great, totally fine
That
with
worked fine.
iPhones. A two-handed model, you could use the MG with one hand if you were using a small camera, like a Pocket Cinema camera or a Micro Four Thirds camera. But because I had a big camera, you can rearrange it, like kit it out, so you have 2 hands, and the ergonomics were fine. Like
When you're holding the camera.
holding it. And they had a little jog dial or knob that you can, a D stick or a thumbstick that you can move around and pan the camera or tilt it up and down. You can't do very fine control. You can't like pan the camera physically and then also tilt it up and down at the same time very well. But if you're just walking down the street and you want to keep focus on someone and look steady, like it's a totally cost-effective way to do it.
It's like a smaller version of like a Ronin, essentially, right? I mean,
Yeah,
that's
so DJI
kinda-
makes one that's Ronin that's way more easy to calibrate and has active balancing, a longer battery life.
I've only used it very briefly, but it seems like a camera that would just kill your body if you use it for too long.
Yeah.
And this newer, like that size that you had, looked really nice.
And when you think of the Ronin ones, they come with stands that you can like put the gimbal on with your camera, so you're not supposed to be holding it the whole time. And they're really made for production shoots where you have like a base of operations that you're charging the batteries. And for this camera, we tried to just take it on the go. And yeah, it could work if you just wanted to keep it on the go and keep it in the car and walk out, but it is kind of cumbersome. Like,
I found like that just handling it and packing it
yeah,
was challenging.
And they're all like that. They're all just awkward.
Yeah, they're all just awkward to carry around.
yeah.
We're running out of time. We have to get to our next destinations.
That's right.
What's coming up on Tested?
So this week, we'll be back at the end of this week. Adam is still on this tour, so he and Will, I believe, are podcasting Still Entitled this week. It may already be out by then. But Adam was in South by Southwest doing a talk. And also we ran a maker puzzle, a puzzle scavenger hunt with our friend Jen Schachter, and that ran over the weekend. A huge success. All 9 puzzle pieces were found. They assembled them.
Thanks to everyone that went out and hunted them down,
And
worked
people out
together.
there who helped solve the puzzles in our comment section. You guys are awesome. That was a long, several months of work to make that happen. The designs look incredible, and we will be releasing those designs, and we'll have more information about that in the next week or two.
We should go back into CERN and cut some of those. They have
yeah.
some nice machinery to do it.
We got laser cutters at our office. We can do that. What's next? What's next, Joey? What's next for you?
Well, I don't know. A little bit of travel, a little bit of shooting. There'll be more. I'll be doing more gear videos. Some lighting and media management. Look for that. It'll be fun.
Joey's also shooting all the videos with Frank down that you see going up on the.
Oh yeah. I live close to Frank, so normal come down. We'll shoot a series of videos. So expanding the family.
What about you? What's coming up?
So at the end of this month, or we're getting into April now, we have a bunch of conventions coming up. There's Monsterpalooza, there's WonderCon, Silicon Valley Comic Con. We're going to try to be at all of these. And a bunch of what we shot here for CERN, you guys will see in the future, but also we are also filming with Kishore for a science show for our Tested Premium community. So we haven't really actively talked about this yet, but we've been developing and working on a long-form science show, and that was one of the reasons we came for the CERN trip.
And like all good science, it just takes a long time.
It takes a while to get it right. Yeah, so you guys
The
will be
peer
seeing
review has
that
been brutal.
on the site, and hopefully in less than a month or so, and it's going to live alongside Simone's show, Frank's show, and Sean and Jeremy's show, which I think the new episode's coming out end of this week, so check that out.
Awesome. Let's get home.
Yeah, it's cold. I'm gonna get some coffee, get a croissant, and find a cab to the train station. Thanks for listening this week. Do we have an outro, Kishore?
We do.
We have an outro.
Oldie but goodie.
All right.
We'll see you next time.
Hi there, I didn't see you.
Is that really the outro?
Oh, is this thing on? I guess it is. Test it.
Bye.